Welcome everyone to the 12-Step Big Book Workshop. I'm Lisa and I have committed to understanding the 12 Steps Recovery Method for many years. Today we're going to delve into Step 2's We Came to Believe. And Step 2 centers on the decision regarding our perception of an outside source of much needed power. Step 1 focused on our sense of powerlessness. And I hope you guys have experienced this concept a little more deeply, not just in relation to your addiction, but more importantly, concerning your feelings of unmanageability. This concept remains relevant whether or not you are able to currently abstain from your addictions. It highlights our challenge in effectively managing our lives and how we perceive reality. So please join me in the set-aside prayer with a willingness to have an open mind and an open heart. Higher power, please set aside everything that I think I know about myself, my unmanageability, and my lack of power, so that I may have a new experience with myself. Step 2, co-creating, and especially with the power. I'm trying to use words other than God to appease everyone. So if you see like the set aside prayer normally says, God, please set aside. Well, we can use higher power. It doesn't have to say God. So if you're doing your own set aside prayer and you don't use the word God, totally change the word. It's important that it suits your needs. So is anybody restless, irritable, and discontented? I do what I don't want to do, and I don't do what I want to do, and it drives me nuts. I'm sure it drives everyone nuts. And have you asked yourself what it is that you actually believe? And then how do you honestly behave in contrast to what you actually believe? Is there a power greater than ourselves? What does it mean to be restored to sanity? Is a God necessary? Is there a power that is necessary? Is this power available to me and you or to anyone? So C.S. Lewis is an older, hold up. He's an older, I think he's dead actually, but he's one of the world's most beloved and renowned Christian writers decades after his death, which was in the 60s. And his books have sold more than 250 million copies. And he continues to sell more every year than he did the year before. What may come as a surprise to many is he's also the author of the Narnia series, the Screw Tape Letters, and Mere Christianity. He followed a spiritual path of the Christian faith from a position of deeply held and rigorously defended atheism. Reflecting on the journey to admitting at least there is a God, Lewis described himself as the most reluctant convert in all of England. In his autobiography, Surprised by Joy, Lewis wrote, "When we set out, I did not believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. By the time we reached the zoo, I did believe. Yet I had not exactly spent the journey in thought, nor in great emotion. Emotional is perhaps the last word we can apply to some of the most important events. It was more like when a man, after a long sleep, still lying motionless in bed, becomes aware that he is now awake. You may not have been motivated to make a decision yet, but tonight I invite you to take a leap of faith." We were first introduced to this idea on page 47, where Bill highlights the significance of willingness, particularly regarding the willingness to recite the set-aside prayer on a daily basis. Regardless of whether you consider yourself agnostic, atheistic, religious, or uncertain about your beliefs, what truly matters is your readiness to articulate those thoughts and intentions with both an open mind and an open heart. Bill underscores that this willingness serves as the foundation, allowing the door to open just a bit, allowing in the light. Everything begins with this sense of willingness. So if you're still struggling with the 100% concept, just be willing to be willing that it might actually be true, because that sets things in motion in a nice, perfect direction. And this willingness, or a willingness to be willing, which might be remote, we saw this as the cornerstone, the powerful decision about my concept of a power beyond myself, but readily available. On page 53, Bill asks us the key question: God is or God isn't? What is your choice? So ask yourselves, what is this organismic life force that flows through our universe that produces a minuscule egg that turns into a human being? And what is God, your it, whatever you call it? You can fill in the blank. Not from a textbook, not from a dictionary, not from your religion, not from a sponsor, not even from the big book. But what does power mean to you or look like? Is your it an infinite material being? Bill states that the answers to the questions regarding where and how to discover this power involve searching diligently and fearlessly, as well as engaging in honest self-reflection in relation to our long-held beliefs. Both paragraphs emphasize the importance of searching and thinking, highlighting that this vital life force in dynamic energy can only be found deep within oneself. The life force, this organismic dynamic that is difficult for us to name, it is beyond our underdeveloped brain's capability to put into words. Do you believe it is fully present? On page 53, Bill says, God is or God isn't. That is about its existence from a different perspective. He says, God is everything or God is nothing. Whatever this reality is with a capital R, if it is the only thing that is. So if it is the only thing that is, that would mean it is somewhat logical. And we would like to think that there is a consciousness there, an awareness, a self-awareness, but I digress. I don't want to go beyond the boundaries of the big book because I have a lot of experience with a lot of different ways to reach God. But some talk about this unconditional love. We are looking for help. What does unconditional mean? Having no conditions? But as you see, there are no hoops to jump through. There are no right or wrongs. There is no reward or punishment. It's unconditional. So if this reality is everything, it doesn't need anything. At least that is the human logical way of understanding it. If we look at unconditional and human affection, it is nice, but it is not attainable, because by nature, we are material, finite beings, in contrast to what is on our screen there. We are not fully present. We are very distracted. We can't be everywhere and know everything. In fact, we know very little in the big scope of things. I may not be able to comprehend what unconditional really means, but I do have a pretty good idea what conditional means. The closest I can relate or define unconditional would be the love that I have for my children and grandchildren. I know Bill says that there is no unconditional love, or Herb believes that too, but I think there is the capacity, especially with a child, to be able to say, I love them unconditionally, even when they piss me off. So, in contrast to this power, we often find ourselves not fully present due to our many distractions. We cannot be in every place or every moment simultaneously. And our limited knowledge contributes to this issue, meaning I was unaware of my own lack of intelligence and understanding. This profound struggling with my awareness of reality is what leads to my suffering. When we struggle with what is, which is reality, we will suffer. Bill conveys a sense of hopelessness. However, he also contemplates the experiences and insights he acquired while growing up with his grandfather. Bill's insights from living with his grandfather centered on the importance of intellectual and practical challenges, the value of self-reliance, and the belief that with effort and guidance, anyone can overcome most any obstacle and achieve personal excellence. He expresses a moment of deep personal reflection that led him to reject the possibility of a personal God. According to Bill's own account, he had been suffering from severe depression and alcohol withdrawal, feeling at the bottom of the pit, and still continued resisting the idea of a power greater than himself. And you guys probably remember, Bill was raised by his grandparents. And his grandfather, way back when, was a recovering alcoholic at the time, which is pretty amazing because it was prior to AA. So Bill feels pretty hopeless, and he thinks about how what God had done for Ebby, what Ebby could not do for himself. His human will had failed him. Doctors had failed him. Bill was about to be locked up and he admitted complete defeat, and he had been raised from the dead. He's talking about a miracle here, as he sees it. Bill wrote in his book, "Despite the living example of my friend, there remained in me the vestiges of my old prejudice. The word God still aroused a certain antipathy. When the thought was expressed that there might be a God personal to me, this feeling was intensified. I did not like the idea. I could go on for such conceptions as creative intelligence, universal mind, or spirit of nature, but I resisted the thought of a czar of the heavens, however loving his sway might be. I have since talked with scores of men who felt the same way. My friend suggested what then seemed a novel idea. He said, 'Why don't you choose your own conception of God?' And that's where this all began." Bill reflects on his potential atheism, yet he appreciates the universal concepts presented. Some synonyms listed on this page include creative intelligence, universal mind, and spirit of nature. During their discussions, Bill questioned the religious notion and confronted Ebby. In response, Ebby provided an incredible reply, which is italicized on page 12. Again, he said, "Bill, why don't you choose your own conception of God?" When asked in an interview about the origin of this idea, Ebby attributed it to the teachings of the Oxford group, emphasizing that each individual has the freedom to choose without being confined to any specific religious dogma. Bill describes how this realization melted the ice around him, metaphorically thawing him out. He stated, "It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required for me to make a new beginning. I recognized that growth could begin from that point, built on a foundation of complete willingness." So if you find it challenging to release self-will, Consider exploring new possibilities by asking yourself questions that can invite openness, such as, could it be that taking different actions could yield fresh results? Is it possible to doubt the process, yet still explore ways to move forward? Another significant way to demonstrate your willingness to let go is to kneel, not to seek attention from a higher power, but to capture our own attention. The act of kneeling in prayer can serve as a profound spiritual and psychological tool for self-reflection and personal growth. Traditionally, kneeling is viewed as a symbol of humility, reverence, and supplication to a higher power. However, we will approach it differently, focusing on our own attention. This practice can suggest that the true benefits arise from the internal focus and humility that kneeling inspires. It can be a powerful means to quiet the ego voice and contemplate your own needs, emotions, and moral compass. I find kneeling to be immensely helpful during really incredibly hard times. And I don't kneel on a regular basis because, well, I'm older and my knees aren't what they used to be and my back doesn't like it. But when I need to kneel, I get on my knees and I don't get up till I have to. So I like the concept of kneeling, and it's not about God really or prayer. It's about me lowering myself to the earth and saying, I need help. And I wait till it shows up. So try this for a few months. You'll soon realize that your life is getting better. Work your steps 10, 11, and 12 daily, and you will see your relationship with your higher power start to strengthen. This is likely contrary to your feelings or inclinations if you are feeling hopeless. But upon a foundation of complete willingness, you will build what you may have seen in others. Bill said the scales of pride and prejudice fell from his eyes, and he reminisces about his time in Europe in World War I, where he had an experience that opened his heart up to the possibility while sitting in Cologne Cathedral in Germany. But he said, worldly clamors distracted him. Sadly, as soon as he left the cathedral, he also left the experience behind and picked up drinking again. In December of 1934, he found himself hospitalized for the third time. After arriving drunk on the 11th, he received a visit on the 12th. In a moment of humility, he surrendered himself to God as he understood him, expressing a desire to be guided by divine will. He reflected, for the first time, I admitted that I was nothing on my own. Without this power, I was lost. I faced my sins directly and became ready to let my newfound friend, with a capital L meaning God, remove them entirely. His schoolmate, along with Ebby Thatcher, visited him and shared a complete confession. He recounted, I fully revealed my issues and shortcomings. Together, we compiled a list of those I had wronged or held resentments against. Bill stated, I expressed my complete willingness to reach out to these individuals. His friend assured him that by addressing these matters, he would embark on a renewed relationship with his creators, embracing the principles of steps 10, 11, and 12, which would help resolve all of his challenges. So make sure you're all doing your 10, 11, and 12s daily. So Bill says belief in the power, along with a genuine willingness, honesty, and humility to create and sustain a new order are the fundamental requirements. It sounds simple, yet it is far from easy. This profound statement from the Big Book carries immense weight, emphasizing that a price must be paid. This price involves the dismantling of self-centeredness also known as unmanageability, which is a spiritual affliction. And we wonder, how does this transformation occur, Bill? Well, Bill explains we must turn all things over to the Father of light, who presides over us all. This beautiful metaphor of the Father of light represents a higher power guiding us toward greater understanding. It provides comfort and direction as we navigate life's challenges and our struggles with unmanageability. So back to Bill, it's now his third day in the hospital, and he shares, "There was a sense of victory followed by a peace and serenity like I had never known. I felt an overwhelming confidence, as if a refreshing wind from a mountaintop swept through me." He goes on to say, "Most men come to God gradually, but his impact on me was sudden and profound." This is why Bill referred to it as a spiritual experience, particularly in the first edition of the Big Book, and also in Step 12, where he mentions having had a spiritual experience. However, he revised this in the second printing, understanding that most individuals do not encounter such an intense, transformative experience. Most individuals tend to have a more subdued experience, similar to the dimmer switch, slowly turning, brightening the light, rather than that simple on-off flick of the switch. However, Bill's conversion is truly remarkable. He recognized not only that he had undergone a profound transformation, but also that the desire to use alcohol had been eliminated from his life. He understood this instinctively, as it happened instantly in that moment. This insight is particularly significant, especially given it was only his third day of detoxing. But keep in mind that this is not the average awakening. And Bill had many attempts to stop prior to this. I don't know what specific work came before this event, but I can assume that if Bill is recommending a God upgrade in his book, he must have been doing his own type of power searching. And yeah, his achievement is remarkable, and it reflects the essence of his biological and psychological transformation. Moreover, he recognized that he had an important message to convey to others in order to assist in their own discoveries around recovery. Bill mentioned that a friend had emphasized the critical need to embody these principles in every facet of life, especially the importance of upgrading his concept of a higher power. He expressed, "Faith without works is dead. If an alcoholic or addict does not strive to improve their spiritual life through work and self-sacrifice for others, they cannot withstand the inevitable challenges and low points that lies ahead. Without active participation, they would surely give in to drinking, and if they drank, they would undoubtedly face dire consequences." And Bill remarked about the statement, "With us, it is just like that." When we listened to Jim's story, which included numerous signs explaining his relapses, even after working through the steps, the key takeaway we focused on was he failed to expand his spiritual life. He wasn't assisting others. Bill and Lois dedicated themselves to helping fellow alcoholics, which became the essence of Bill's life's work. Engaging with another addict proved to be a lifesaver for him. Whenever he felt down, he would go to a hospital to help someone in need. Even during his deepest despair and depression, after attempting to assist another, he always found himself uplifted and back on his feet. He referred to this as a design for living. Bill says we gathered often so that newcomers can find camaraderie in these informal meetings. They felt at home, similar to the gatherings held by the Oxford group, with many attendees present to discuss various topics from another perspective for new awareness. Additionally, they organized a formal meeting each week, allowing newcomers to share their challenges. During these sessions, they would remind everyone, we don't take ourselves too seriously, but we do take the program and the disease very seriously. Faith is present 24 hours a day within us, which highlights the crucial decision we make regarding faith, recognizing that there is a higher power. This is the essence of step 2. So the bottom line is an uncreated creative reality. Whatever this is, this power, it wasn't created, because if it was created, then whatever created it would be the fact that is the power of our not understanding, which is very interesting. If there is something greater than the God that we can encapsulate, then that would be the ultimate source I am relating to and referring to. So what he's saying is, if there is a God, but there's a God above that God, then it's the higher God that we want to strive for. And it is all a mystery, but for me, I use my logic. When I do not have concrete proof, I logically try to understand why I'm here and why I exist. Something beyond my parents created me. They were the vessel I came from, but the fact that I exist, to me, confirms that I was created. This is where the mystery begins. What created me? I'm not sure, but I know that there is a creator, hence creation. And I know that it is energy and that it expands and grows. And I also know that at the center of that creation, there is an element of the energy of love, which is a vibrational energy on a higher level. And that is what I believe my source is. In chapter 2, which focuses entirely on step 2, Bill advises, in the spirit of an open mind, take a look at the results of the people in the room. If you find it difficult to believe in or decide on any traditional power, higher power, or God due to a lack of understanding, consider the group as your source of strength. This idea is profound, as the group embodies what you seek: freedom from addiction and a life that often thrives. Observe the outcomes achieved by those around you and utilize the collective as your higher power. In understanding sanity and spiritual awakening, we can say sanity is characterized by a sound mind, in contrast to the defiance commonly seen in those struggling with addiction. At the outset of our journey, we examined Appendix 2, eager to understand what a spiritual awakening truly entails. Bill provides insights into both a spiritual experience and a spiritual awakening within this appendix, particularly after he revised Step 12 in the second printing. A spiritual experience can be compared to a light switch. It's either on or off in an instant. In contrast, a spiritual awakening resembles a dimmer switch, progressing slowly and gradually, often unnoticed at first. However, others may eventually observe that we appear different, happier, calmer, or that circumstances have shifted. On page 57, it says, it is a personality change sufficient to bring about recovery. He cites William James's definition of a spiritual awakening as a transformative personal experience that alters one's entire perspective and priorities, often leading to a state of inward peace and a shift in focus from the material to the spiritual or higher power. James noted that such experiences can occur either gradually or suddenly, akin to a religious conversion, and are marked by profound feelings of assurance, harmony, and a redefined personal center of energy. In the final paragraph on page 567, the promise embedded in the 12-step process is highlighted. We undergo a profound alteration in our reaction to life, and this change could hardly have been brought about by ourselves alone. Additionally, an important phrase often overlooked at the bottom of page 567 reads, "Unsuspected, we go over to awareness of the power greater than ourselves is the essence of a spiritual experience." This essence lies in an awareness, not merely a thought, a certainty, or feeling, but a genuine recognition of the validity of this power. So when we discuss awareness, it's important to understand that it transcends mere thoughts, precise descriptions, defined words, or even feelings. While having feelings is certainly valuable, we must recognize that they stem from biochemical reactions influenced by our perceptions. Our emotions can vary widely. They can be positive, negative, neutral, or even absent. The spiritual journey isn't inherently tied to feelings. In fact, emotions can often hinder our spiritual growth, particularly for those struggling with addiction who seek to constantly feel good and avoid discomfort. To truly recover, we must confront our challenges with honesty, illuminated by our experiences. It's vital to remain open to spiritual concepts. Closing ourselves off can hinder our progress. And where and how will we uncover this power? Bill expresses, with this attitude, search diligently, search fearlessly, think honestly, adding, you can join us on the broad highway. With this attitude, you cannot fail. And what attitude is Bill referencing? To illustrate this attitude, let's consider the metaphor of a sailboat. The aspects known as roll, heave, pitch, and yaw must be taken into account when positioning a sail, as the mast is crafted to capture the wind and drive the boat forward with this mindset. Embracing honest thinking with an open mind, searching diligently with keen attention to detail, and fearlessly exploring the unknown, taking risks, represents our invitation in step 3, which we are preparing for. Step 2 entails the commitment to recognize that power exists. I choose to believe in its existence and act in accordance, even when uncertainties arise. This is faith, and it is my conscious decision. So faith is a decision that inspires action. It's a choice that urges us to take the steps. James the Apostle famously stated, "Faith without action is dead." This highlights the idea of merely talking without taking any steps. It underscores that genuine faith is shown through meaningful actions and good deeds rather than just through words, ideas, or thoughts. The analogy of a body without a spirit being lifeless illustrates that faith requires a spiritual life or works to be truly vibrant and dynamic. So one night, Bill finds himself in the hospital when he's approached by an alcoholic who has experienced a spiritual awakening. This friend of Bill's cries out in intense anguish, bitterly lamenting, "If there is a God, he certainly hasn't done anything for me." This reflects the classic victim mentality often seen in addicts and others facing struggles. However, he eventually quiets himself and contemplates this question. Is it possible that all the religious individuals I've encountered are mistaken? In his profound desperation, he reaches for any semblance of hope while contemplating this answer. Can anyone else relate to that sentiment? I know I can. Much of my anger towards religion stemmed from a profound need for control, and because my religion was not cutting it. For decades, I attempted to connect while creating obstacles to avoid my pain from my addictions. A new idea that a higher power could address my needs felt way too good to be true. So Bill thinks he is in meditation, and he doesn't. No, he isn't, because he doesn't believe in God. So he is in discernment. A thunderbolt, a great thought comes. It wasn't his thought as he is hearing it or thinking it. Who are you to say there is no God? He tumbled out of bed, fell to his knees, and in a few short seconds, he was overwhelmed by the presence of God. It poured over and through him with the certainty and majesty of a great tidal flood. High tides, the barriers he had built through the years were swept away, and he stood in the presence of infinite power and love. He stepped from the bridge to the shore. For the first time, he lived in conscious companionship with his Creator. Our friend's cornerstone was firmly established, guiding us back to the spiritual arch. This cornerstone symbolizes the first stone set in the foundation, which dictates the direction of the entire structure. Bill notes, no later vicissitude. This speaks to the pain that arises from confronting our life's challenges. The turbulent currents of the river of vicissitude and difficulty have not swayed it. His battle with alcoholism has been alleviated. On pages 84 and 85, after contemplating the ninth step, Bill expresses very clearly, we are placed in a position of neutrality. Embrace the grace and freedom that comes with being placed in a position of neutrality. And that neutrality isn't just around our addictions. That neutrality colors everything that we do, meaning people, events, or places that used to upset us now take on a neutrality so that we're not getting upset by those things that we used to. So it's not just about our addictive qualities, it's about our whole life. And this doesn't imply that he isn't tempted. He experiences the thoughts, but lacks the overwhelming obsession. Pay attention to his insights. For a few fleeting moments of temptation, the thought of drinking has never resurfaced. He faces temptation without the obsession, a profound aversion that he feels. He can no longer touch the hot stove without recalling the pain it caused him. This now defines his sanity. So at the end of step 2, Bill is talking about the return to sanity, which is the freedom from the obsession. So listen to this sentence again, as it is overlooked often by many. Seemingly, he could not drink even if he wanted to. He is powerless. We are powerless. We can't use our addiction even if we want to. Think about Bill saying seemingly. He is not going to say something that sounds black and white. Instead, he says, but he could not drink even if he wanted to because he is powerless. He can't drink if he wants to, and he can't not drink if he doesn't want to. Seemingly, he could not drink even if he wanted to God had restored his sanity, his healthy thinking, his healthy perspective, his soundness of mind. He calls it a miracle of healing. Circumstances led him to a place of willingness, to be willing to believe. We've all faced the harsh realities of our addictions. This often positions us to surrender completely and be open to possibilities that might offer help. He humbly dedicated himself to his creator, which relates to step 3, as each step is connected with the next. He says, God restored us all to our right minds, highlighting the theme of sanity once more. This man's revelation was a sudden spiritual awakening, while many of us experience a gradual journey of spiritual growth, often by building on spiritual experiences until a final awakening occurs. Here's the promise, the final promise, actually the final two promises of step 2. God has come to all who have honestly sought God. Hear the condition. Bill had it twice in the answer on page 55 because it is such a simple solution. Seek and you will find. Just be willing and be honest. Search diligently, search fearlessly. An act of our will, an act of our faith that gets translated into action. The second promise at the end of page 57. Bill then says, what is this but a miracle of healing? Yet its elements are simple. Suffering gave him the desire to be willing to believe. He humbly offered himself to his creator. Then he knew. What Bill discovered and came to know, and he wrote, when we drew near to God, God disclosed himself to us. But please don't feel overwhelmed by step 2. The discussion around God is about our understanding and thoughts. I still don't have a complete understanding about my creator, even though I have spent almost a lifetime studying and searching for answers. Have you thought about whether you are a spiritual being having a physical experience or a physical being seeking a spiritual experience? Thomas Merton, the Trappist monk, said, God is reality that has no circumference and whole center is everywhere. I hope this helps you all in coming to an understanding of what step 2 is trying to convey. You may or may not have this experience by step 2, but by the time you have completed the 9th step, you will have a different relationship with the power other than yourself. The power of your decision at this moment all hinges on your choice. This is the final piece of this puzzle. What attributes and qualities do you desire and require this power to embody? Remember, this isn't about creating an icon or perfecting the words. It's about delving deep into your soul and connecting with the essence of what this means to you personally. Gandhi once said, your concept of God will change as you do. This has been completely true throughout my journey, and I suspect it will be or was for you also. I thrive in the flow, and that's where I prefer to live out my life. So here's a picture on the screen, and I'm going to invite people, if anyone thinks they know what it is, to raise their hand.
It looks to me to be like a paramecium and microscopic organisms
Good guess.
flowing in a microscopic environment, just like the basic organisms,
Over here.
the building blocks of life.
Okay. This picture, I put this picture up to help people better understand what's going on inside a human cell. This is one human cell. The entire picture is one human cell. And it was animated by a couple of people who created a digital rendition of a eukaryotic cell. I can't even say it. It's a human cell is a bustling microscopic universe. It measures about 0.05 of a millimeter across. It contains over 40 million proteins, 2 trillion lipid molecules, and billions of other structures in one cell. One teeny tiny microscopic cell that we can't even see with our eyes. That's what is contained. When I see something like this, I can't feel anything but awe at whatever created this is pretty amazing to me. And that's where my power lies, in the power of whatever can create that right there on our screen, which becomes us. That's where my power goes. So keep that mind open and expanded. If a cell can do that, imagine what we can do with all the cells that we have that look like this in our bodies. This is colorized to show the detail, just so people realize it's not, we don't have all these colors in our cells. But they colorized it, they did it at Harvard, and they colorized it to choreograph the intensity of what goes on in our little tiny cells. So we are at the end of the PowerPoint, and I'm going to see if anyone has any questions.
I don't have a question
Okay.
as much as I guess I have some input.
Sure.
Yeah, on this. Yeah, I've been sober 21 years this year.
Wow,
And
congratulations.
thank you. When I first came to AA, I really thought um that God hated me. I know that sounds really stupid, but I really thought God hated me.
Mhm.
And yeah, my life was so unmanageable. And it was just completely out of control. And I thought, wow, God really hates me. God really hates me. And I remember saying that at meetings, that he really hates me. And people, they didn't say anything because they're not going to say anything. Um, and then over the years, things got better. The longer I stayed sober, the better things got. Um, and then little by little, um, I guess my concept of my higher power changed, and my own personal spirituality changed because I didn't really understand what that meant, but I dove into it a little deeper, like you're talking about, and things happened. And as I continued on, um, enjoying different things, big book studies, and the 12 and 12 things and all that. Um, I just learned more and more. Then I guess I came to believe, um, all the things that Bill talks about. I came to believe in a power greater than myself. And I came to realize, that it took something bigger than me to get me sober. But when it really all hit me was I used to say to the people when I first got sober, because I drank all the time. And I used to say, what am I going to do to fill my free time? What am I going to do to fill my free time? And they said, oh, you'll find something to do. You'll find something to do. So I took up bicycling, and I became like a big bicycler. I still love to bicycle. But I do 100-mile ride or an 80-mile ride, whatever. But there's a place in Michigan on the west side of the state, and I joined two bicycle clubs. And not to go into, all this detail, but I was on a bicycle ride with an organized ride, and I got hit from behind on my bicycle um, on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m. And we were in this, how Michigan's shaped like a hand. We lived in the thumb area, is what it's called. And I got hit clear on the other side over by the pinky. And it was at 10 a.m. in the morning, got hit from behind in a group ride. Um, Nobody took notice of anything because, everybody thought that everything was going to be okay, that whoever was the culprit, was going to stop and everything. But I was going probably 20 miles an hour on my bicycle. And then I get hit from behind going down this hill. It was a really bad accident, long story short. So I ended up having all these surgeries. I had to take a 5-hour ride by ambulance to Detroit and stuff. But um, I was laying there one night in bed, and I'm all banged up. I got pins, plates, and screws on my whole right side leg and everything. And it had to be at 2 in the morning, and I'm in this bed all by myself. And I just remember there laying, and I grew up in a very abusive household too. And I remember laying there, and I just started bawling. I mean, I just started crying, and I thought, God, what is going on? Why me? Why me? And I don't know what came over me, but all of a sudden it dawned on me that God had done for me what I couldn't do for myself. God had got me sober. I went to an AA meeting, and after that first AA meeting, I never drank again. God got me out of that abusive household. Um, I went on to go to college. God saved me from that bicycle accident. I was banged up, but I lived. I could have died. Um, He saved me from all these things. I don't know why, but all that was God. You know, it wasn't me, it was God. And I look at my sobriety and I look at all the things that could have gone wrong, but they didn't. And looking back on all that, and I think, wow, I just look at that today and I think, oh my gosh, what a blessing. All that's been, and it just, my whole life has changed so much. And that, to me, that's my higher power. That's my spiritual connection. But it didn't come overnight, if that makes sense. It's taken what it's taken for me to get where I'm at. And I see other people, come into the program, and they don't know what they don't know. They don't have a higher power. They don't know what a higher power is. And I think the longer they're in the program and the more they study the 12 steps and do the things we're doing, eventually they come to believe. They either, like we just said, they either believe or they don't believe. But I think it's kind of difficult, like the cell you just showed, it's difficult. How can you not believe? That's my thought. Anyway, sorry to talk for so long.
No, that's okay. And I agree. After the fact of understanding God, I say, how can not people not understand? If you asked me before I understood, I would not have understood. So it is that awakening that gives us the understanding. And for some of us, it can happen quick with an event like a serious car accident, it's the death of somebody, losing a home. There's so many hardships that can really propel us forward. And then there's some people that are really lucky and they have a life that kind of just goes along, not a lot of chaos or any of that stuff. And they seem to come around it at a slower pace. So, having that accident, I'm sure, was extremely painful and time consuming and all kinds of stuff. But there's probably a gratefulness to it that you got that experience and got to do it in a fast way. You
Yeah.
got to go right to the front of the class because because remember, Bill said way back in the beginning, we either change for great suffering or we change for great love. And
Yes.
yours clearly was great suffering. As far as the thinking that God hates you, that's not an uncommon theme in the rooms for people that have been living with dysfunction or unmanageability, because we've gone through such horrible experiences that we must assume, even though it's wrong, that if there is a God, it clearly does not have any concern for me, since my life is happening the way it's happening. But of course, that's before we take responsibility for our actions. We think it just happens by chance. And if we have a situation where as a child we're living in a household where there's a lot of abuse, and the people that are conditioned to love us don't, it's hard to imagine that something beyond our parents would actually love us. And that, of course, is a childhood thought that we have to address as adults. But you clearly have changed the message that you were giving yourself about God, as far as the love or the hatred, I assume.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
Did that come overnight? Like, did it come overnight with the accident, or did it just take more time of understanding what God was?
Um, I was starting to change what I thought about God, but after the accident, that night was such like an aha moment. I can't even describe to you what an aha moment that particular night was. That
Right.
was just like getting hit over the head. Yeah. Yeah. And I
Literally.
talked to my sponsor about that. Yeah, I really, yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. I remember laying there and I thought, oh my God, because I had a really close friend that was in the program. And she said, there's a reason that, you made it through this. Because I was really, really tore up. And she said,
Yep.
there's a reason you made it through this. And yeah, I just remember there laying there just thinking about her saying that, because I basically was in so much pain and I couldn't take any more pain medication. Um, and I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, God, why? And that's when all these things just came flooding through to me. And
Nice.
literally that's when I thought, oh my gosh, how ungrateful can you be? That's exactly what came to my mind. I thought, how ungrateful can I be? Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. I did the homework, so I would like to read my answers to the homework. And then I want to give you a specific example of how I made a decision, and a decision came to, I didn't make it, but I was meditating. I came to an understanding, and I acted on it. And I want to just share
Okay.
that.
Sounds
Okay.
good.
All right. So you said, what on page 53? What is the question? What is your choice? And that was God is everything or else God is nothing. God either is or God isn't. Right. And then the characteristics that I yearn for, that I need in my God: caring, loving, just, joyful, insightful, forgiving, honest, creative, wise, sensitive, and reliable. And then you asked for our concept of God. My concept of God is an infinite creative spirit that is underneath the totality of everything. A higher spirit deep within that gives me guidance, wisdom, power, and freedom. God, or the life force of Oh, God is the life force of reality that I cannot comprehend because it is infinite and I am finite. God is I love this. God is the ocean. I am the bucket. I cannot put the ocean in the bucket. And then I wanted to give you my experience. I meditated yesterday, Tuesday nights, at dinner with my son. And, usually Lonnie's here and Lonnie and I go together. He drives and everything. I was really tired. I didn't really want to go to have dinner with my son. I wasn't feeling good and I just didn't want to go and meditate. While I was meditating, I said, don't do that. Your son looks forward to having a paid meal and he looks forward to these outings. And just because you're tired, don't do that. So right after I was done meditating, I texted him. I said, let's meet at this restaurant and, at the time and everything. And we did. And as I went out to meet him, everything just flowed beautifully. I mean, when I got into traffic, I had a lot of traffic. It was slower than usual, but I got to the restaurant on time. Usually this restaurant is very crowded. It's very difficult to find a parking space. There was a parking space right in front. Usually I have to wait for my son. He's always late, and I have to wait for my son. This time, he wasn't. He wasn't late. I mean, I was in the flow. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I really attributed it to the fact that I came to this awareness while I was meditating and then acted on it. And then that's the visible proof, the fact that I could get there and smooth. It was a smooth flow. And that's that to me, when things like that happen, when I do the next right thing, that's my visible proof. Those are the little miracles.
And it's the confirmation that your meditating is working because it puts you into the flow.
Yeah.
It puts you in your right mind. If you hadn't done all of that, you probably wouldn't have gone out to dinner with your son.
I probably wouldn't have. I would have called him and I would have said, I'm tired. And he would have said, okay, I understand. But no, that wasn't the right thing. That wasn't the next right thing to do.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's the flow at work. That's showing you. And you can stay in that flow for quite a while, and when you realize you're getting out of it, you get back in it. And at some point, we actually will live 24/7 in that flow.
Oh, wow. That would be wonderful.
It really does happen where we touch base with our higher power about everything, so that we're in constant contact. Mm-hmm. And that constant contact is what keeps us in that flow.
Yeah.
So
believe it.
You're on your way. That's fantastic.
So I actually, it's kind of interesting. Like I did the homework and I didn't realize that I actually had a really major shift actually. And I don't know if it was just this workshop or,
you always say that, Mark. It was this work.
No, okay.
You know it.
All right, fair enough.
Go ahead.
So I my higher power really hasn't changed. I'm not, I have a pretty established like higher power, but what I did notice is that, the aspects of the higher power that, which is a traditional higher power. So I'll just read what I wrote down: prosperous, loving, blessing, forgiving, the creator, healer. Then I had two lines actually, like from like Hebrew, and then gratitude, producing, giving, open, helpful, instrumental. But like the truth is, like as I was writing that, I was reflecting like the things in, as it says in the 10 step that I do, every morning, and it says read in your literature, there's stuff that conveys that to me that I read every day. And I was like, that's kind of interesting, so, so that's the part that's the homework. And then like that bit sort of like the creator, with other aspects of the homework, I didn't do it perfectly, but I did what I could. So yeah, creative intelligence, that's one I've loved for many, many years. spirit of the universe, our own conception, sufficient, the great reality deep inside, broad highway. Um, excuse me, we were into. I'm having trouble reading my literature, but we were into something ourselves, supreme being, like who then made all this, and that's also like a reflection when I'm like, well, maybe he can't really help me with this, but like who made all this stuff that I'm seeing that I know people didn't make, you know what I'm saying? And just this whole question, do I now believe, or am I even willing to believe that there is a power greater than myself? And I think I can actually ask myself that over and over and over again during the day when I hit a jackpot. And faced with alcoholic destruction, we soon become as open-minded on spiritual matters as we had tried to be on other questions. And a power greater than myself, spiritual basis of life or else. And it's kind of interesting because I've been talking to newer people, and I realize I said this last time, but I still see it come up where it's just like to be doomed to an alcoholic death or to live on a spiritual basis are not always easy alternatives to face. And I saw it in a deep, deep way with myself, with my addiction. And I saw it with a sponsee, actually two sponsees again. And it was just like, yeah, like it looks like we prefer death, like which is insanity. Even after having been in the program a couple years, that's still suffering. And just like I don't really want to pray. I would prefer to suffer in my addiction and not ask for help because I'm too proud or I'm too used to these negative like effects. Like I'm hooked on it. Like I don't want to ask for help even if I know I'm going down the wrong road. And then so the sort of like just these code and philosophies did not save us no matter how much we felt. So I think for myself winding down, I did kind of like want to describe like, and I can't totally describe it because I realized as I came closer to the workshop that I actually had a spiritual experience. I hadn't planned on it. I thought I was just doing like, some of the outside stuff that I do to keep my mood up. But then I realized that something shifted that I can't explain where now like on a deeper level than the last time we did this like a year ago where it might like God might really be able to do it not like he did it before, like something I've never seen. And so there's been the last 24 hours, there's been kind of a bit of that. um and and I didn't know that I was on such a high until I always have people like contact me while we have the workshop. So I had the family afterward calling me about something, and that kind of like disturbed, I guess, my quote unquote like that spiritual make believe. But I was in and out of that. I think maybe 24 hours, and I didn't really know that until later on in the day. And the difference where part of it I think might be permanent is that I was able to get angry or feel different emotions and stuff like that. And then I was kind of like, is this really very helpful? Like I do a lot of stuff in traffic, like so I'm dealing with traffic, and it's like, is this helpful? Is what I did very helpful to me? Was that really God's will, or is that really not what I'm supposed to be doing? And just kind of reflecting on that over and over and over again. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Sounds very good, Mark. When you're in that flow, like Rita was saying, you had that 24 hours, and you're definitely expanding your ideas about God, even though you have pretty solid, godship, so to speak. I think there is a lot of expanding that you've been doing, and when we expand, our life situations expand with that flow, and things just start working differently. And that's the pull to having that power in our life is how much better our life is going to operate when we adopt that ideal of there's something bigger than me, and it's so big it can run my life for me because I clearly can't. So I'm willing to give this power a really good shot at making my life something I didn't think I could make it.
Can I just add one quick thing?
Absolutely.
I took, to give a concrete example, I took a brand new action I've been afraid of for many, many years.
Oh,
And
good. Tell
then,
us.
and
Tell
I
us.
and I pitched I ran into a former student of mine that I hadn't seen like in 10 years. So I pitched to her one of my products. I didn't even think about it. It just like it was a total God thing in my head, something I would have been afraid of. And I just like pitched this service to her. Like it's not a service where she would have to pay money, but even the pitching of the service is something that I've been blocked doing. And it was just like a no-brainer. And I was doing it while afraid. Like I was completely afraid, but I was like, I got to do this because God wants me to do this. Yeah.
Yep, it's time. It's time to walk through that door, Mark, and you're walking through it. That's fantastic. And you know what? Sometimes we have to walk through with the belief that our higher power is supporting us, and we're afraid. We go anyways. We feel the fear and we do it anyways. Because fear's not real. That's the ego trying to usurp the power that we're finding. So you did the best thing you possibly could, and you went forward even with the fear. That's tremendous. Thank you for sharing that.
Okay. I just liked what you talked about neutrality, not only with our addiction, but with other parts of our lives, so that we're not getting upset over things, the way the world is, the way life is. Um, and that's true. I always say that the difference, with 12-step recovery and any other kind of like weight loss program or, diets that I ever tried over 50 years, the difference is the spirituality part. It's the part that um, works, the solution. Um, I liked reading the 24-hour book today. The victories you have won over yourself through the help of God can be shared with others. And I just thought that's such a cool way to look at it. Victories you have won over yourself, you know. I like that. Also, I had a question. That last page in the agnostic chapter, page 56, this person, he's describing, business failures, insanity, fatal illness, suicide. Do we know who this is? Is it Bill? I just wonder who it is if we know.
I don't think he identifies this person.
Okay.
But he's in an insane asylum type of place, so there's a lot of other people suffering from the same issues.
Mhm.
And Bill would do that. He would just walk up to people and start to help them.
Mhm.
And he did it from the get-go. As soon as he had his spiritual awakening, he immediately started doing those types of things. And that's what made him realize that that was part of recovering, was to go to people and help anyone you can in any way that you can. And he made it his life's purpose. He really did. And he also found that in helping people, it helped him cope with his debilitating depression. He had very debilitating depression, and it was what worked, and it can work for everybody. But they don't really identify this person, which is unusual because they do identify all the other ones, but I'm not sure who he's talking about. I'll see if I
I was
can
just
find out, though.
curious.
I'll see if I can find that out.
Hi, everybody. So, when I was doing this assignment and I was doing the question, um, with the qualities and attributes. And I answered the question. I sort of was reflecting on my answers, and I realized I was answering these questions and I answered it as like a child. And that my answers to the questions were really um, reflective of something like deeper, some like childhood, you know, um, I don't know, like deeper than like a narcissism, but like so my answers were, and they weren't like, spiritual answers. They were sort of like the answers that like a child might give, and it's interesting. So knows me well and loves me unconditionally, knows what I mean when I say things and thinks things, understands my deeper motivations, knows my history, is strong and can protect me from myself, cares about me, but also cares about those I care about, is willing to stick by me even when sometimes I seem uninterested or absent, will not forsake me, and always has my best interests in mind. They're all very self-centered sort of things. And they don't talk about the deeper world or the deeper, impact on the world or, you know, um,
So
the one.
are you disappointed in your answers?
Well, if maybe I had thought uh, differently, if I had thought more globally about it, maybe my answers would have been differently. But my answers were very self-centered answers, and they were the answers that, maybe reflect, the way I grew up, you know.
But well, that's what I was going to say to you. That's because you're kind of at base level. You're at the beginning and you're thinking about what your beliefs are. So of course you're going to revert to whatever they started out as. So that's very common. And what's also common is we take those beliefs that we had as a child and we bring them into our adult lives for decades. And it's the belief of a child that we're depending on. That's why Bill says we need to do an upgrade, because most of us live our adult lives with childish beliefs about our higher power. So that's actually a good thing. Were those things that you felt, or were they things that you thought?
They were things that I thought. I mean, I wasn't feeling any particular way when I answered it. I wasn't feeling deprived or anything like that. Those were the answers that came to my mind. That
Okay.
those were the attributes that I would want a higher power to have, that I would want the higher power to be almost like a cocoon protecting me, you know.
What's wrong with that as an adult?
I don't know if there's anything wrong with it as an adult, but it's more of a child protective sort of thing. It's not more of an adult. It doesn't seem to me to be more of an adult sort of view of a higher power. It's not like a global view of a higher power. It's more of like
Well,
a, pro- a
as an adult,
protective.
I want protection. I bet everybody does. Anybody else want to raise their hand?
No, no, I get that.
Yeah. Yeah. It might sound childish, but it's really not. It's actually very honest. It's pretty raw that you feel that you want a higher power that will protect you. It's pretty deep, actually. Because most of the time as children, we don't think about our higher power as a protector. We think about our parents as our protectors.
And that's what I was equating it to.
Yeah. Which is a slippery slope because our parents are human. They weren't perfect, and they were most likely unmanageable. Our higher power is nothing like that. That's the slippery slope of wanting a higher power that's equivalent to a parent. And some parents can't love unconditionally, whereas a higher power can.
I think my parents loved me. I just don't think they could protect me the way that they wanted to.
That's very, very possible. And that probably hurts. But if it's the truth and you can embrace it and get beyond it, then that's a wonderful, wonderful experience that you'll have. When we can see our parents honestly, we can recover from the pain that we might have experienced because of who they were. Because they didn't know any better than we know. We tend to put our parents on pedestals and then we expect them to be idols. And when they don't live up to that expectation, we carry some serious rocks around in that backpack of ours that we drag through our lives. Because we think that they're the end all and the be all, and they're not. They're just people like we are. They're not exceptional. They most likely never took a course in childhood development. So when we see our parents as human beings struggling like we struggle, we can let go of a lot that may have happened, not only as children, but even as adults. I have a 93-year-old mother that's not talking to me right now. She's 93. So age really doesn't mean a whole lot. And just because she's my mother doesn't mean she has to talk to me. And I accept that because that's where she's coming from. So it's that reality that we have to live in. And the reality is you didn't feel protected as a child for whatever reason. You want a higher power that will protect you. Makes total sense. And, you know, when we go to the 12 steps and we decide we're going to look at our lives and we're going to look at our addictions and we're going to look at our behaviors and the way we've treated people, we become very vulnerable over that. We're in a very vulnerable place. We want to be protected, especially now. We're trying to discover, is there a God? Like, is there something out there that can help me? Because I've been doing it all my life without help. So this is very vulnerable work, which is why we do the higher power part in the beginning, especially before the 4th step, where we're going to really need to be supported. But, you know, this is not work that everybody does, because it's not easy. But the rewards are phenomenal. And the incredible thing about all of your attributes that you all listed off, because God is everything, all of your attributes are valid. All of them. They're all there because God is everything. So he can be everything that you need him to be. So listing those attributes is like manifesting your power to the needs that you have. And it will be fulfilled because you're putting it out there. Once you put it out there, it's out in the universe and it's spinning around and it's happening. It's that power of intention. So it's important to know, this is what I need. You probably won't need to feel protected. You'll finally just feel at peace. But for today, just for today, you need to feel protected. And that's a wonderful acknowledgement to what you need. Because now you know in what direction you're going to go to get it. We can't heal it if we can't name it. And now that you've named it, you're 50% of the way there.
Well, I just wanted to relate my experience. Maybe it'll help somebody else. But, I was raised, I'm Jewish, and I went to Sunday school. And, I have the prayers, the Shema, and the prayers that I say. And I just realized that actually thinking about that and saying my familiar prayers was a block to this new experience. And that's where the set aside prayer was so important, because I would say the Shema, which is a familiar prayer, and I didn't realize, but it was actually blocking me to my new experience of what God is. So I just wanted to share that. That helps. I don't know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And that's important for people to know, because some of those things that we did learn initially can be a block because they were such a habit. And with that habit, we might have had disappointment. So
Yeah.
we don't want to lead with that. We want to go with something that feels more positive and more enriching. So that makes total sense.
Good.
Thank you for sharing that.
So I had a procedure on Monday, and I'm now waiting for results from the lab. And it's this horrible time, this waiting. And I just need to hand it over to God and just to trust. Those moments that I hand it over and I'm trusting,
Yep.
and my higher power is a loving higher power and has always been there for me.
Yep.
I feel fine.
Yep.
But the minute I take it back, I take the power, I take the control back. Oh, I'm in terror.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just have to remind myself that, God has always been there for me, and He will be there no matter what. And just just breathe and enjoy the day.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's what I did with my family tonight. So, yeah.
When I get into those situations where I'm waiting for a response or a test result, I get very caught up. I get obsessed. So what I do is I have a thing on my watch where it will remind me every time it's the top of the hour. I'll get a little beep beep. And when I hear the beep beep, I remember to reconnect with my higher power,
Mhm.
because I forget. I forget
Oh,
who
yeah.
I am. I forget who my higher power is. And I revert to those old habits of, oh, I gotta do this. This is me. I gotta take care of this.
I mean,
And
and my mind goes always to the worst.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But if I stay in the light of my higher power, then I feel okay.
Yep.
I
Because
feel
the
at
higher
peace.
power is going to support you, whether the test result comes back the way you want or it comes back the way you don't want. You're still going to be supported. And that's what you want to focus on, is the support,
The
not
support.
the
Yeah.
test result, not the answer, not the particulars of the whole thing. Focus on your faith, because whatever we focus on, we get more of. As you know,
Mhm.
the more we focus on fear, the more fearful we become. So the more we focus on faith, the more faithful we become. It works both ways.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So whenever your head's getting in the way, because it will, the mind body problem, stop and say, no, I'm going to be in my faith instead. And you might have to tell yourself 100 times in 1 hour, but you're going to have to keep doing that till it becomes second nature. We give up a lot of control when we take on a higher power, and we're used to being in control of so many things. So it's a little difficult at first when we actually decide, okay, I'm going to let my higher power handle this one. Can I really do that? It's scary,
Yeah.
but so is thinking the bad thoughts that we're thinking that aren't even yet to come. That's just torturing yourself.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
really is. So keep going back to your faith. Every time you look at something, I've told people, put an elastic band on your wrist, and every time you think those negative, scary thoughts, give it a little snap, which actually goes up to the brain and says, hey, wait a minute, something's wrong. changes the pathway. So you could use an elastic band. You just give it a little tug, and when it hits your wrist, you're going to know it. But it snaps you out of that obsessive, habitual negative thinking. Because we're programmed to do that. It's not, that's our natural state. That's where we've lived for decades. So it takes a little bit of work to not go back in there and stay in there. But you've done a lot of great work. You don't want to lose all this wonderful stuff that you've done over fear that's not even true. It's not. Right now, right here, you don't have an answer. So whatever your thoughts are, they're not true.
Thank you.
So lean on your faith.
Yes, hello everybody. Oh
Hi,
my
Heidi.
goodness. I am in heaven right now, honest to God. Every Thursday with you. I am so grateful what you are doing and everyone else who are sharing. I'm in other groups, I'm doing herbs on Tuesday and there is a smaller group, but I just don't feel like what I feel with you. Your presentation is wonderfully put it together and it makes sense in my head. Everything you say and everybody else who is sharing. It's like, okay, this is my group. Okay, you are number one.
Yep.
About
This group does work really well together. I will say that. Go ahead.
yes. Someday I'm gonna be on a screen also, but it would disturb me right now. It takes too much attention to be on a don't
Right?
see me, but I am here, right?
That's okay.
This thing you mentioned about your God is changing by time, and it just went through right away in my head how I was as a child growing up. I am very old, actually. I mean, not very old, elderly. So I have 70 years behind me, and so much to say then one, right? But in a nutshell, I grew up in a communist country, so the religion wasn't very strong, but my mom was believing in a Catholic church, so time to time we went to the church. And that's how I grew up. And I knew that this God in my head, as a child, it was an old man probably sitting on a cloud somewhere and more like a Santa Claus kind of thing because he's watching me, and if I don't do things right, I'm gonna be in trouble, even if I think about it, right? But there was this thing like, okay, you can go to the priest and tell everything you do. It was a weird idea about everything, but I believed, and I knew that there is something bigger than this life. I knew that. I lived in a very close to a sacred place where Mother Mary showed up for somebody. Okay, so that kind of a paranormal things and everything. So I believed when I left Hungary, I went to Italy, living in a emigration camp or something, and we went to Rome. I I was in Rome and the Pope was there, right? On Christmas night. I mean, it was like a magic, everything. And then we come to America. It was like, okay, every place we went, the first thing is we go to a church, of course, the Catholic Church. And I was totally into this and it was beautiful. And then somehow I was losing this because they were talking about bad things about the Catholics. And the cultural shock was that every corner, like now it's a Starbucks, everywhere is a church, right? And they are all different. Oh my goodness. For somebody who knew only about Catholics, right? Catholic churches. So I lost that thing, and I had this dark night of the soul actually going through it, and I almost killed myself over it. My mind was I have to know God. I have to find God. I need to know which God is the right God, right? Because so that's the delusion and illusion and everything. Of course, with drinking, uh, it settled down somehow because this I started I studied all the religions and everything. It's just, but I realized. God is not out there, God is in me. So that sounded like, oh, now I remember. God is in me. Oh. So that gave me like a fresh air, fresh breath or whatever. So that helped me to to go to AA and I find AA 30 years ago, find AA God, the best God ever. Because it was a loving God. It wasn't this watching you and what are you doing. We are in a care of this loving God. Oh my goodness. And everybody can have their own God. I mean, it's like, wow. So it was great. And I got sober with that. And it was still a childlike thinking. And I like to hear like, I am a child of God. I like to be a child, right? I
Yeah.
don't want to be a grown up. It's
Mhm.
too hard.
Yeah.
Of course,
Especially as we get older, I'd love to be a child again.
right. And then it comes well, twist of fate. Of course, the ego got me, and I said, okay, I am now sober, but I want now enlightenment. It's like, let's go all the way. I want to be just like the gurus and the saints and everything. Oh my God, that was well, drinking helps with that too, to be delusional and illusional.
Right.
So yeah, I was a seeker. I would do anything and everything to get that, except giving up all my addictions. Right?
Right.
That was the only thing, and that was a suffering and everything. So now I know I had to do it. We are ready when we are ready. So and I have cross addictions and everything. So it's either one of the. It's I always worked on an addiction which was killing me at that point faster than the others. And yeah, it's very interesting life when you are addicts like me.
Oh, yes. It is very interesting. That's a good word.
It's seeking the seeker part too. Yeah, that was an addiction also.
Mhm.
I mean, that's over also now, because finally I read the big book. Finally, I hear the big. Uh, I don't know. It's an interesting life if I look back, like, but for sure there is a God, because once when I had that horrible evening, I I took some medications, to kill myself. And I went to the mirror. I remember. Of course, it was with alcohol too. And I said, God, if you exist, show me. I took the medication, right? So save me. If you don't exist, I don't care to live. So yeah, that's an alcoholic thinking, right?
Oh, yeah.
or nothing, right?
Oh, yeah.
This
All or
is
nothing.
my life.
Yep.
Anyway, so yeah, thank God I'm not there anymore, and I don't
I'm,
have
ass-
that
I'm assuming you
phobia.
saw God because you're here.
So that's why I'm saying if you want any proof, I'm still here. I don't know what she wants or he wants. So Divine Mother wants or Divine Father wants from me, but probably wants me to stay sober and help other alcoholics and other people to have a better life than mine. Thank you,
Probably.
dear. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Heidi. Yeah, we've all got our stories and they're all different. And I can remember doing things like that. I didn't do it that extreme, but I can remember testing my higher power, my God, and it obviously didn't respond when I wanted it to. And I would think, well, there must be no God. And then I'd go through it again. And it was such a back and forth. But, you know, it is a learning curve. It is a learning process. And the God that, like I said, that I believe in is constantly expanding because I'm expanding. So therefore, it works out that way, which is great. But the God is everything is really an important concept because then everything, like all those, like I was saying, the attributes that we wanted, because God is everything, those are all true for you, for the way you listed them. That will be your God. It will show up that way, which to me is phenomenal. I think that's just truly amazing. So keep adding to your list, though. Don't feel like you have to only have so many on that list. Keep going with it. Keep adding to it. If you're having a day where, you know, things aren't working the way you want, you realize, oh, this is an attribute I need my higher power to have, do your set-aside prayer. Add it in there. Throw it out. See what happens. Everything is possible. Everything and anything is possible. So take that little bit of a risk to take the chance that you want to add something or you want to expand it. Don't be afraid of your higher power that you can't make it bigger. There's no fear when it comes to the higher power. And if you're feeling fear, you're in your ego, because the ego and the God, they can't coexist. Won't happen. So if you're trying to find your higher power or expand your higher power and you're running into a lot of fear, you're running up against your ego. You need to get rid of your ego. And if you can't, ask your higher power to remove it. It will remove the ego. Absolutely. Any more questions or comments or concerns? Excellent. Would you all like to join me in the not the set-aside prayer, the serenity prayer? God,
God
please grant
can
us
be the
Serenity.
to accept
to
Accept
accept
the
the things
things
we
we cannot
cannot change,
The
courage to
to
change the
the
things we
things we
can,
and the
and
wisdom.
the wisdom to know the
difference.
difference. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Keep up the good work, everyone.
Thank you, thank you,
Keep
thank
coming back. Don't let your egos win.
No.
you.